Hey, John, welcome to another episode of Eat, Sleep, Code, the official Telerik podcast. How are you doing, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's the week of Thanksgiving here in the States, so I'm gonna take a little time off for a few days,
Have some
have
turkey?
have some turkey and probably a lot of fattening foods I shouldn't be eating, but
Lots of
hey,
carbs.
it's an American holiday. What can I say?
Yes, that's right. You got to maintain your standards of eating, I guess.
Gotta do what we do. How are things going for you down there in Australia?
Oh, things are great. Yeah. We don't really celebrate Thanksgiving as a country, but some of us still do. So I celebrated. Well, Canada's Thanksgiving comes a month earlier because our harvest is usually a month earlier.
Hmm.
So we celebrated it last month, and now it's a race to the Christmas finish line, I guess.
What type of things are in a Canadian Thanksgiving? Do you roast a
Same.
moose in the
No,
oven?
no
No?
beaver, no moose, no elk or anything like that. Typical turkey, that sort of thing.
Play a couple rounds of hockey
Sure.
afterwards?
Yeah, too. A couple fist fights. Although that's typical American Thanksgiving as well.
Yeah, the fist fights here are usually over politics, not hockey, though. So
Oh, that's
there's
okay.
that. Oh man, it was a busy week of news.
Yeah.
This is kind of something that Apple's been working on for a while. We
Yes.
talked a little bit about some of the updates last week, but the M1 chip, you got a
Yes.
little outline about that here. What's
Yeah.
this? This new ARM processor that's going to be the next big
Yeah.
thing for them?
This is basically Apple's final step into the silicon making business, relative to their desktop and laptop computers. I guess they're not introducing desktop machines, but it's obvious that they're going to go that route, I
Hmm.
guess, at some point. But these are essentially system on a chip boards that they've created that includes everything that you need to run a machine for their laptop line, namely the MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro, and also the Mac Mini, which is the sort of bring your own keyboard, monitor, and mouse machine. So it is a desktop in a sense. Uh, so what this is basically, Apple's gone through three iterations of this. They started with well, prior to that, they were using a variety of CPUs, but the really big transition was going from to the PowerPC RISC architecture, and then they moved that to Intel. This is their third transition into a architecture where basically they own everything. So they've designed the chips themselves. They've designed the boards. It's got an integrated GPU. It's got integrated RAM. It's got everything that you need in there to basically run their system. And what's been really interesting about this is the fact that they're seeing huge wins, both in terms of performance and also in terms of battery life, or I guess efficiency. So they're not only gaining huge performance wins over the Intel generation of Macs, but they're also seeing radically improved battery life. And there are a variety of reasons for this. I've listened to a few podcasts that featured engineers from Apple talking about this in detail. It's a very interesting transition for them, but essentially they've achieved both. When this was first announced, I thought, okay, they're either going to really blow all the other CPUs out of the water, or they're going to really increase battery life. And they actually did both performance and efficiency. So it's been really impressive to see this. And this is part of the reason why I've mentioned this here as a top line item, is because I think this is going to dramatically change our perception of what's possible with a PC, and in particular, a portable PC. Apple quite rightly brings a lot of expertise to this space relative to the iPhone and the iPad. Some of the technologies that they have, like Instant On, have been actually brought forward to the Mac. So this idea, you just click a power button and your screen turns on. That is now available in the Mac as well. And so it's been really, really interesting to watch people's reviews on this, and not just take it from Apple in terms of their marketing. So people have been reviewing these things for about a week, and by all accounts, it looks like it's the real deal. Now, not without some problems. Some of the challenges around M1 right now are the fact that obviously, you need to recompile. There is a technology that allows it to work just out of the box, what are called universal apps on Mac. However, if you want to take full advantage of all of the bits and pieces that are in there, you can do a recompile. There are some challenges, though, with M1 in terms, and Big Sur, relative to security, that is causing some challenges for people. People have complained that certain apps don't run. One of the latest ones that have just been enabled to run, but through a bit of a hacky way, is Homebrew, which is the app package manager for not only Mac, but other platforms as well. But that's the canonical one for Mac. So basically, there have been some challenges, but I would say it's great news for people who are looking to upgrade and maybe try out a Mac. The performance heuristics around this are fantastic, and also the battery gains you're seeing are tremendous as well. And it only begs the question, what's going to come next after this? So it'll be really interesting to see what happens to the Mac Pro. And I think that you may see an evolution of this. We'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I always remain a little bit skeptical over Apple doing their own thing with GPU or CPUs and GPUs.
Okay. It's the first time they've done it for Macs, just so you know.
Yeah,
other than I guess with Lisa, but yeah.
Yeah, they chose to go non-Intel for a while. Floated a bunch of phony, fictitious numbers about how it was better than the Intel generation of stuff.
Sure.
Not saying they're doing that again. Just when you set that kind of background precedent,
sure.
I remain a little skeptical. So
yeah. What's interesting? What's also interesting about this is that they've integrated TensorFlow on the chip as well, so you can do some machine learning as part of the chip design as well. So that's leveraging Siri. I think Siri leverages that to a certain extent. So they've brought that forward. And
yeah, that's Google's AI platform, but it's pretty industry standard by now.
Yeah, and then the other thing about this is that people often ask, like, okay, so what's the upgrade sort of story like? And there isn't one. Basically, everything's soldered together, and so you're kind of stuck with what they give you. So you got to make sure that whatever decision you make up front is the right one for you.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this goes. Hopefully, it does work out for them. I think we're hitting a kind of an era where we just can't make these things much faster. They're down to 5 nanometers on this chipset.
Yeah. Sorry, when I said TensorFlow, I meant Neural Engine. I don't know why I got those two confused.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
my apologies.
So it's got a dedicated, chipset for AI. It looks like.
Sorry, that just springs to mind whenever I think about AI and ML. I just think of TensorFlow. That's all.
I'd have to read up on exactly what they mean by that, because there's kind of two sides to the AI coin. There's training and there's execution. don't know which
Mhm.
one they're alluding to with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's in the literature here somewhere, but
Yeah.
that's
There's
something worth looking into.
one of the more interesting innovations they've done with this is the way in which they lay out memory, which I thought was really interesting. So a video frame versus a image versus something else that you're dealing with as an application developer. They're all basically there's no conversion that goes on. It's the equivalent of just basically passing around pointers.
Hmm.
And so they've laid that out in the system architecture so that typical operations that you might see on an Intel platform, for example, might, if you copy one address, for example, it may take, maybe 10 or 15 machine instructions, and now it's just one. And so they're seeing these sort of the reason why they're seeing that is because obviously they're able to take advantage of it with the control of the silicon. And so they're able to get some good performance wins out of that. In addition to that, the heat being generated by these things apparently is very minimal. People are doing recompile tests. It's anecdotal, but they're doing pretty significant builds and running these make files that take 10, 15 minutes, and the CPU is fine with it. And it's actually compiling just as fast as a MacBook Pro, and there's generating no heat, none of the fans come on, et cetera, et cetera. So looks like it's the real deal.
Yeah, I have to give them some props for this one. This was a really low bar that's been set, but it's nice to see them setting a new bar.
Hmm.
World's fastest integrated graphics on a personal computer. This
Right.
has like been my major complaint for the
Oh, sure.
last 20 years, is that like graphics is always like an afterthought, and it's like, well, we have a general purpose computer CPU. Let's throw all the graphics technology onto that, and it's horribly slow and it slows down
Yeah.
your machine. And then they're like, well, let's go with the bottom of the barrel, like least useful integrated
Sure.
graphics processor known to
Sure.
man, the cheapest thing we can buy. We'll put that in there. And that's been a PC mainstay for the last 20 something years.
Yeah.
And if you want any kind of decent graphics performance, you have to go out and get a gaming card or a workstation card and throw it in your machine.
But
And
even that feels like an extension to your house, right? Like
yeah,
it has to be retrofitted into a system, right? So this is all integrated. And so the latency that may be inherent into a system like that is gone. Everything's integrated. Now, obviously it's like tightly coupled, which if you talk to a software developer is always a bad design decision. But when it comes to hardware, maybe not such a bad thing, especially if you see gains like this.
it's nice to see that there is a new base though, because sure you can buy like a $900 whatever graphics card and run anything you want on it, but it's not a standard. And developers are going to go to a standard unless there's a reason to go, unless you're building like a game engine or something. You're going to try to run on whatever the standard is. This was a big issue with things like the Kinect. I think the Kinect was a good idea. The problem with the Kinect was they wanted to charge extra money for it, $100 a pop or whatever it was. And it wasn't a standard, so nobody made games for it. Nobody made software for the thing because you don't know how many people actually have it, and then of users, only 2% of the users have it. So this is integrated graphics everybody's going to have. You can guarantee apps and games are going to run at a certain level now, so you can make things just look better in general, and have animations and things in your UIs that are aren't going to hang up the application and make it slow, and then you don't have to have all these user settings to turn those things off to make their application just perform decent on whatever bargain basement PC they picked up. So this is a good stepping stone. This is what we needed probably 10 years ago, not today, but good for them for getting there. Good stuff, man. Hopefully this inspires other things to happen outside of Apple as well. I think it will.
Yeah, especially if you set the new benchmark.
Yep. Excellent. We've got a GitHub repo. What are we looking at here, John?
So first of all, this is from a pretty prolific developer. His name is Sandre Sorhaus. I've been following him for a while. He's actually the originator of the. Have you ever seen those awesome lists that are on GitHub where you have like awesome Blazor, awesome C#, Yeah, so he's the guy that started those, and he's done a variety of open source projects which are quite impressive. This is the latest one called Refined GitHub. This is a browser extension that makes GitHub more usable. And so if you scroll through this, you can see some of the things that he's added to here. So he's, made white space characters visible, add one-click merge conflict fixers. This is just basically an extension you add, and it just enhances the experience of GitHub in the browser. And this is, pretty cool. He's done this before. He's written browser extensions for other environments as well. I think Facebook comes to mind. But yeah, he's pretty prolific in terms of his coding, and likes his emojis, and likes to make sure that the web experience is better. So this is something you can check out. This is the repo, and you can install it and see if it helps you when using GitHub.
Very nice. So redefined GitHub, or refined.
Yes, refined GitHub. Yes, like a fine wine.
I have one that you can see hovering around over here called
Octotree. Yes,
which is really nice. So this makes navigating a GitHub repo a lot easier. You can just pop up this tree, navigate right through it, and then jump to individual files or sections.
Yes.
And you don't have to try to use this cumbersome navigation that's, link based here. So
I like how how people are extending the UI design of things like this. I think it would be frustrating almost as a designer, right? If you're the GitHub main UX designer person, you would probably be thinking, oh man, that's a good idea. We should probably think about doing that. Or you might think, oh, that's going to break everything, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. So definitely worth checking out.
I just added it myself. I'll have to check that out.
All right, cool.
More TypeScript news.
I know.
Every couple of weeks we have these. They really move fast in the TypeScript group.
Yeah, their momentum is good. I think this is the new norm at Microsoft now, where you're seeing not only the TypeScript folks, but also the Visual Studio Code folks working at a sort of prolific pace. And so they've added new features in 4.1, which is now shipping. So make sure you run npm upgrade or install and get the latest bits. So some examples here: template literal types allow modal functions and APIs to expect a set of specific strings. This is useful if you've got an enumeration, for example. You can do type checking against that. This is often a bug you see in a lot of compiled languages, where you specify a string as an input and then it's misspelled or mistyped, and the bug kind of creeps its way down. This can have integrity issues at the database level, et cetera, et cetera. So that's nice. Other features.
This is a big one. We usually refer to these in C# as magic strings.
Yep.
Strings that perform magic are bad. They're just they're always some type of error that's waiting to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if you can, that's why enumerations can be quite nice. Sometimes they're a little bit leaky. Sometimes they don't work all that well, especially if you bring it to a different language. But generally speaking, they're a good thing to use. So 4.1 offers a whole variety of features, and this is a blog post that kind of goes through the summary of features there.
Good deal. Like it.
Yep.
I know you're a big fan of Troy Hunt.
Yeah.
What's he been up to these days?
So Troy's been buying a lot of IoT devices and installing them around his home, and that's actually his garage in his house where I live in Gold Coast. And so he's putting in all these devices to control his garage, his lights. That's his son Ari, I believe.
He's got the kids involved.
Yeah. So he's using a facility called Home Automation, which is an open source project that you can run. You can run it on a Raspberry Pi, et cetera, et cetera. And what it does, it basically provides a hub where you can talk to all of these IoT devices in your home. It's actually the canonical or default way of doing this. Most people, this is the way that most people manage these things. And the nice thing about these IoT devices, they all adhere to the same rough standard. There's a few standards out there, but generally speaking, Home Automation is the centralized repository for all those things. And so if you have any things that you want to do in terms of scripting or automation or alerts or anything like that, it all kind of comes through this one hub called Home Automation, and then you run it locally, and then you can basically control all your devices remotely.
This is something that always scares me.
Yeah.
Home wiring,
oof. Yeah. This is very typical for most Australian homes, by the way. Our standards are a little bit, well, let's say different. So, um, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to see kind of the sort of things you have to do. I think those are ZB devices. Those are little input output devices that allow you to control things like lights. Very binary in nature, and just basically allow you to turn lights on and off remotely that way.
Yeah, this to me looks like a shock or fire hazard handler, both fire hazard and shock hazard.
Oh, what do you mean? Everything's
Um,
stuffed in the wall. It's all good.
yeah. Yeah, I just ran some new LED lighting in my place for under cabinet lighting and stuff, and
Okay,
it is so immensely easy now to wire this stuff up. With that comes a lot of caution to
sure,
newbie electricians or
sure.
people who think they are that you probably shouldn't do a lot of this type of
No,
stuff here.
no,
Um,
no.
yeah, so when I ran mine, I've got proper junction boxes for the high voltage wiring. So the
Okay,
high voltage wiring goes into the junction box. That junction box has a transformer within it, and then the low voltage comes out of that same junction box, and then you can run that guy willy-nilly wherever you want. Because low voltage usually isn't prone to shock and fire.
okay,
So if there were any fire, it'd be in the junction box where the transformers and whatnot are, and that stuff's contained
gotcha.
in the junction box with a lid in a sealed compartment, where oxygen can't proliferate the fire everywhere.
Sure.
So stuffing these things behind a wall is very scary to me. Somebody who knows. I'm not an electrician, but I've done. I have a degree in electronics. I've done a lot of work in electronics. High voltage is a scary thing.
Right.
What do you guys run down there? Are you running 120, or was it 110, 120, or 220?
Oh God, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Sorry.
See, even more reason.
Yes, I don't know anything about that stuff. I
Yeah.
just know who to pay to fix it.
There
So
you go.
yeah.
So yeah,
So anyways,
that's probably
Troy's
better.
Troy's doing this basically a course on how to get this all set up, and so he's been
Hmm.
blogging about this. If you're following on him on Twitter, he has been posting a lot of photos, and so this is just a culmination of all that work that
Ooh,
he's been doing. And
those
so
are
he's been doing
nice.
he's been doing a lot of work trying to automate this stuff. I'm actually heading over to his house for a Christmas party this weekend, so I intend to see this in all its glory, and I'll be very interested to see kind of if there are any burn marks on the wall.
Oh man, good stuff
Yeah,
though. I like these pot lights. These are pretty slick.
yeah, they're
So
flush, and I
they
think
connect to
they're
an
yeah, yeah,
outlet.
yeah, and I think they're also a multicolor LED as well. So they're kind of like the light effects or Philips Hue light bulbs that you see.
So this is another one that's interesting here. So this looks like it's self-contained in a junction box here. They have a plug on them, but they don't look like they're high voltage. So in the US, you can't run a plug with a high
Okay,
voltage wire like this behind the wall.
okay,
You can run low voltage. You can't run high voltage. Actually, it is high voltage. So yeah, this wouldn't be illegal in the U.S. as far as in most parts anyway. Each state's different, but yeah, you can't have a plug like that behind the wall. It has to be hardwired. Um, the idea here is like if for some reason an electrician's working on it, they slip or fall or something, that can't be something that comes unplugged and yanked out of the wall. Um, and wires can't be where they can become, electrocute someone, things like that.
okay.
But these are pretty neat.
Yes.
We'd have to hardwire them here in the States, but they look pretty cool. I'm sure
Cool.
they sell something similar in the US, but
Yeah.
I like that. And then Caucho 1972 says that you're running 240 down there.
Okay, there you go.
That's even
I'm just
scarier
a I'm just
stuff.
I'm just a caveman. So
Yeah,
there you go.
I don't like the high voltage stuff. We did some high voltage stuff at my old job when I was a tech. My boss had slept on his neck wrong one morning,
Okay.
and we're working in these machines that very close quarters. They're running three-phase high voltage, and he's sticking his hand in there like this, and then he starts like shouting and like, like gyrating. And you can't touch somebody like that, so I'm reaching for a broom, because a
Yeah.
wooden broom, to like knock him off of the machine that we're working on. And he's like, no, no, it's just my neck. I slept on it
Oh,
wrong. And I'm like, dude,
so
you
you're
almost
hitting
got
him?
whacked.
Yeah,
Like
that's funny.
almost pried you off the machine with uh, you know, with a non-conductive pole, basically.
There you go.
Like you can't be acting like that. Can't be
Always
doing
looking
that.
after others. There you go.
Yeah. All right. You got some octopus deploy stuff in here.
Yeah, so
So
Alex Yates, he's an external consultant that occasionally writes for us. Well versed in the area of DevOps, and there's a lot of DevOps books out there to read. A lot of people have read well, there's a few actually. There's the Unicorn Project. There's a few by uh, names skirt me right now, but basically what he's done is he's basically said, if you want to read some of these, I've got a chart for you to read, and it's like a flow chart for determining which one you should read. So this is like your choose your own adventure
I love
thing.
it.
And so Alex kind of gave his opinions on each one of the books. And if you're looking to kind of dip your toe in the water of DevOps, this is the kind of flow chart you can follow.
I'm glad other people think like this. This is what I need to get interested in a book. Because if I were to
Right.
take all these books and like read the first 10 pages, I would probably tap out of most of them. But giving me a guide to kind of have a flow chart decision tree
Yeah.
on which one I actually need to pick up and run with,
Yeah.
that's a time saver. I like this idea a
Yeah.
lot.
The
It's very
Bible,
cool.
the Bible is the middle one. The Phoenix Project, the white one, that's the Bible. And then the one that followed, I think that followed that is the Unicorn Project. The ones that I've glanced at are Continuous Delivery, that black one. That's the I think that on the left. Yeah, that one's good. And then Accelerate, I've glanced at as well as the DevOps Handbook, which is in yellow. So those ones are good. The one on the far right, which is the O'Reilly Site Reliability Engineering, that's a very good book. And if you're aligned to sort of the SRE Google approach of maintaining websites, etc., that is probably your first book to read, I would imagine.
I like the breakdown here too. Do you want a novel or a textbook?
Yeah, the Phoenix
It's
Project
very
and Unicorn.
important stuff.
Yeah, they are written. They are written like stories. So they're from the perspective of a project manager who's dealing with, engineers, et cetera, et cetera. So it's taken from that perspective. Whereas the other ones are more prescriptive and technically focused, which I guess
Those
is
are
what
my
you kind of,
style.
yeah, that's what a lot of developers like. So there you go.
This was a big issue with me in high school. Is teachers wanted to assign all of these reading assignments and book reports, and they were always on this novel based type of reading, and I'm
Yeah,
very much a textbook type of a reader, and it was just grueling for me to go through these things. Just sheer boredom trying to read
right,
these
right.
novels about anything,
Yeah,
uh, whether that was fiction, nonfiction, technical, or otherwise, where I could pick up any kind of like textbook or learning type of a manual and just read through it end to end in a day and be happy with it and tell you everything that I comprehended from it. Um, there wasn't a whole lot of like mixing of those two things. It would have been
yeah,
nice if they had a little variety, a little diversity in the reading, but that's not how we do things in schooling here.
gotcha.
Let's see, a month of Terraform.
Yeah. So Terraform is one of a few products that are available to manage your infrastructure. Some other ones that viewers might be familiar with include Ansible. Pulumi comes to mind a lot. There are others as well. And
Mhm.
Terraform is sort of the canonical one that most people talk about. It allows you to describe your infrastructure in a format called HCL, which basically stands for HashiCorp language. It's like JSON a little bit, and it's
Mhm.
a way of describing your infrastructure. And essentially, what Terraform is, it's like a giant state machine. Basically, you tell Terraform, this is the way I want things to look. Like this is the way I want my Azure cloud provider to look. This is where I want. This is how I want my Telerik binaries to be laid out, etc. On disk,
Mhm.
possibly like that. That wouldn't exist, but you know what I mean. So basically, Terraform gives you a way of describing that state, and then it applies it allows you to what are called plan and apply those states to your infrastructure. And then consequently, you can also manage your infrastructure based on changes. So any changes that you wish to propagate, any deletions, etc., CRUD operations you wish to do against your infrastructure, you can do so using this language, and then check that into the Git repo, maintain it, etc., etc. So what this article is basically a sort of 1 month testimonial by Jeremy Sherman, who basically talks about his experience using Terraform for about a month, and talks a lot about what works, what doesn't work, what's ugly. There are some limitations to Terraform. Don't fool yourself. It is nice in some respects, but in other respects, it can really hurt. It can really suck. And when things go wrong, just like AI, computers really take a long time, and they sometimes come back with the wrong answer. So Jeremy basically put a synopsis around his month with Terraform. I did see there was a related conversation on Hacker News regarding this, and some people had cited that Pulumi is a nice breath of fresh air, so to speak. The way I've seen this is that most people have gone from Ansible to Terraform, and then most people go then from Terraform to Pulumi. I've spent the last 2.5 months of my life writing a provider for Terraform, so I've been in the SDK world of Terraform, and it is kind of challenging. It is frustrating in some respects. Terraform's way in which they structure data, the way in which they think of state, is very primitive in my view. But yeah, it's just interesting. Incidentally, they use Go for everything, so everything is highly scalable, which is why it's allowed. It can actually can work really well. It's highly functional. So it's interesting from that end. But this is from the perspective of a user, and so it gives you some sense of managing that infrastructure. So it is a tool to have in your arsenal potentially for you going forward if you're managing any infrastructure as an SRE or as a DevOps person.
Very cool. That's I'm very much a developer, and I play super dumb when it comes to DevOps, so I can't speak to any kind of experience with this. So I have to take your word for it, John.
Okay,
you're the
no
expert
problem
here.
Hardly.
Speaking of experts, Michael Jolly, Bald Bearded Builder. He's got a show on Twitch. He's an expert on all things web development. He's doing a week of Blazor next week. After the turkey holiday here in the US. He's got his show on Twitch, which you can find at twitch.tv/baldbeardedbuilder. Great show, by the way. But check him out next week. Make sure you follow him on Twitch and watch his week of Blazor. I heard Dan Roth's going to be there.
Okay.
Some other big guests are going to be there. Very entertaining gentleman here. So make sure you tune into that next week. Some gaming news. We haven't gotten any gaming news yet today. This one is, Nintendo always...
No. Sorry, I just read the headline.
Nintendo always zags when everybody else zigs. It's time for all of the massive console releases to come out. We've got the Xbox One X and the PlayStation 5. And what does Nintendo do but come out with an 80s style... what were these things called? These all-in-one little game devices?
Sure, yeah, I had one.
So it's like a very retro. Yeah, it's called the Game & Watch. This one is Super Mario Brothers. It's they're still celebrating Mario's 35th anniversary. They've done a lot of Mario stuff in the last couple months here because of that. This is an extension of that anniversary. They released this Game & Watch. Apparently it's a clock. I don't know why you'd need this these days, but it doubles as a clock. But it's a cute little handheld pocket device. It's kind of a unitasker. It does one or two games. It's 3 games, actually. 3 games here.
For $50.
$50 maybe is a little steep considering
the
Switch
quality
consoles,
of games. Yeah.
$300. So, you might want to just save your money and put it towards something bigger. I don't know.
There's going to be 1,000 years from now when the aliens excavate the rust encased hard drives and they look at what our society came up with before we went extinct. They're going to see this and say, wow, they really like their left to right scroller video type 2D games. I don't know. I don't get it. So,
but you know what, John, this really really begs to ask the question that is on everybody's mind.
Sure.
That's our wonderful video effects there. Can I play Doom?
Yes.
And so, this thing's only been out a few weeks and somebody's already hacked it. Apparently, it runs an ARM processor with some custom code on it, and they've hacked the ARM firmware and sideloaded Doom on the Game & Watch. So, although all it does is plays like these 3 games, and like the most impressive one being Mario, it looks like there's a little headroom in there, and they're able to get a watered down version of Doom because the source code's out there. So you can kind of pare down the textures and some of the other features to the game, and you can have that up and running if you want to hack your Game & Watch. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
I'm giving a harsher sturgeon face now as I'm.
I can tell you're absolutely thrilled, and you're going to
my lips are getting thinner on the video.
You're going to go out and do this immediately. I know you are, John, because you're just as big a fan of play Doom. Can it play Doom? As I am. So
on a DJ set.
Yeah, well, I was looking at the Nintendo one. This one cropped up as well. So on the XDJ RX2, whatever the heck that is.
Basically a DJ. It's like a mixer. Some
kind of DJ mixing board. So if you're ready to let the bass drop while you play Doom, apparently that DJ controller is also quite capable of playing everyone's favorite PC game.
Wow.
So and again, it's an ARM processor, so it looks like there's an ARM version of Doom is what's making this so easy for everybody. And I say easy in a relative sense. I mean, there are definitely people going out and like reverse engineering these products, which is no easy feat. But I guess like they don't have to like rewrite Doom by hand every time. So
guys, we've got problems that like these people are so smart, and I'm like, guys, just help us solve cancer. Like we don't need more Doom.
I don't know if the Venn diagram really overlaps in the whole cancer thing, but
I know, but
yeah,
help us find distant stars and help NASA out, and come on, this isn't advancing anything. It's just perpetuating. We have nothing else to do but play Doom.
Yeah. I mean, I'll level with you. Like, we don't get into politics on this show, but we have spent more money chasing conspiracy theories in this country over the last 2 weeks than we have, like, solving problems of like hunger and sickness and those type of things.
Yeah.
So you got to take what you can get out of stuff.
All right. Fair enough.
We like our Doom. We're going to keep playing our Doom. And, it also gives us opportunity for the.
Okay, we're done. I think we're done.
It's super classy. Why not? I keep meaning to make one of those for AI because I like to cover AI topics.
Okay.
As well. And this should hit pretty close to home for you, John. You'll understand why here in a sec. This is Human Rights Commission Publishes Guide to Recognizing and Preventing AI Bias. This is a big problem in AI, machine learning, is it's built by people.
Yes.
Yeah. We always talk about, or we always see in like science fiction, like the Terminator and big, like the machine taking over the world because it sees no, use for human life and all this, stuff. It's smarter than people and it'll make itself smarter. The whole war games, theory and all that stuff.
Well, you have to have the laws, the Asimov's laws and things like that in there. So
the real problem, in my opinion, I think these folks agree, is that the current AI that we have, as dumb as it is, it's built by people and it has the same flaws and biases as the people that built it. So this is kind of a book that they put together to kind of lay out those type of problems and give people kind of a best practices to work around these issues so we can get some of these biases out of your AI, the way you collect data, sample data, and all that stuff. So this is a paper that was published, and I said that it would hit a little bit close to home for you. Let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, this is so this is ongoing research that was initially part of the Australia AI standards. And this is another article here, setting the AI standard and what it should look like in Australia.
Okay.
So if you read through this a little bit, one of the points they're trying to make here is they were trying to pioneer kind of this human rights aspect of AI. Again, talking about bias and things like that.
Right.
And I'm just quoting what I've read here. I'm not saying this is accurate or inaccurate. I'm not an expert on this, but they were basically saying the United States and China is has a big stake in AI, and that Australia's niche in AI could be that they have a very human rights standard AI, and that could be a
Mm.
play for the Australian tech folks. So
Yeah.
I
I
thought that
mean,
was just really interesting.
yeah, you might roll your eyes at this, like, oh, come on, give me a break. But actually, it is really important, especially
It
when you
is, yeah.
consider the application of AI and what impact it may have on us in society. And a perfect example of this is street cameras, especially red light cameras. I went through one yesterday, and I was stuck behind a bus. I was thinking about this the other day, and I was stuck behind a bus, and the light hit yellow just as I was going across the intersection. And I was
Hmm.
thinking to myself, huh, like, is this red light camera gonna ding me because the bus in front of me is moving slow, but I was already committed to going across the intersection. So I'm kind of halfway through the intersection when the light goes red. Am I going to get a ticket? And so these and other sorts of things. Obviously, that's a simple example, but biases like that can go into other applications of AI.
Hmm.
And so you've got to be really, really careful about what it is you're targeting, how you're targeting it, making sure that your sample sizes are for learning are accurate in terms of the populace, so that these sorts of mistakes won't happen. And obviously it needs to course correct along the way, but raising these questions is good, and so it's good that we're
Yeah.
thinking about this. I do share a little bit of Elon Musk's concerns around AI. I think this will happen sooner than we expect, and for a long time I was a big naysayer, but based on what I'm seeing right now with the evolution of this stuff, I certainly can see this taking off in certain ways, and I don't think it's going to hit the nightmare scenario that we envisioned. I think what's going to probably happen is, my son was asking me about this the other day. I think what AI is going to do is it's going to actually make assertions about our reality that we can't even comprehend. Like, it will say things to us, like AI will give it a standard working set and will say, find the largest prime, or, you know, take this sampled set of data and tell us how many black holes there are in this spectrum, for example. And we're doing this already with medical systems. So they're detecting cancer at rates higher than radiologists, for example.
Hmm.
1 or 2% is higher, but still, it's a significant difference. I think what's going to happen is we're going to throw it at more generic sets of data, and there's going to come back answers that we don't expect. Like, hey, there's going to be a hurricane. I know it sounds crazy, but there's going to be a hurricane in Alaska in in January, in 20 years or something like that, based on the data we're seeing. So it's going to be really interesting to see what pops out.
Yeah. I think we're in for some bigger worst case scenarios before
Okay.
things AI wise go awry on us. I see problems like that are outlined here, but also things with the what's it called? Deep fakes, I think, is going to become an issue, if it isn't becoming one already.
Okay.
As we're seeing things play out in the U.S. right now with things going on, there's a lot of just conspiracy theories and garbage being pushed around the net, the net in general, social media networks and whatnot. People do a very poor job at validating these things already, and
Sure.
then you're going to have video that starts getting thrown around the internet of influential people saying things they didn't say, doing things they didn't do, I think that's going to be a real crisis for us in the next few years.
Well,
So
we can validate it at a computer level with those things. Like I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I mentioned the case like you can cryptographically sign some of these things and also do validation of these things. Like, has this video been tampered? And I think there's a group working on this right now that is, to the human eye, of course, it looks like the person is saying or doing whatever it is that they're on the video, but the computer, they don't speculate. They look at the ones and zeros and like, listen, these bits here are not drawn correctly according to the way that the rest of the scene is lit, and it's off. It's a fake, basically. So we'll see.
yeah, we will see. Hopefully we nip that in the bud before it gets to the escalated level that we're seeing all this other nonsense flying around. Uh, just pull open a recent Twitter conversation today and try to have a
Okay.
sane look at reality.
All right.
Anyhow, back on topic. Low code, no code. That keeps coming up. I've been watching this on my radar again.
Sure.
This one was talking about COVID being an accelerant for no code. So you're seeing a lot of problems trying to be solved with software,
Okay.
and there's not enough developers to do it. People are reaching to their IT departments to try to get apps and things accelerated, so they can get systems, tied together, automate things that were
Sure.
manual and in person.
Sure.
So that seems to be a driver right now. Um, a lot of this stuff is pushed by like Forrester and Magic Quadrants and all that stuff. So you got to kind of keep that in perspective as well.
Sure.
So there's there is an agenda to some of this stuff. So you got to kind of read between the lines a little bit. But I do agree that software in general is just picking up momentum. People want more, problem solved. They expect results quicker. They're looking for tools and ways to make that happen.
Yeah.
So it's something to keep an eye on. One thing that they do mention at the end of the article here is exactly what I said. Despite all of these things that these analyst companies are talking about in regards to no code, that software developers use a great degree of creativity in their
Yes.
jobs and problem
Yes.
solving capabilities that you're not going to get out of a tool. You put the tool in front of people, and you still need somebody that knows the problem, can solve the issue, and think outside the box to make that thing do what it
Yeah.
needs to do.
I don't think no code's going to be that big of a thing. I don't think it's coming to fruition now. I think a lot of people are talking about it now, but I think mistakenly, and I think a lot of people who aren't in software development are talking a lot about it because I don't know if they feel like that's what they want to do. I think that software development is hard enough. You're absolutely right. We need more developers. We need like 10x, 100x more developers than we have now. I see no code being the same prospect of trying to do math without numbers or trying to do math without like times and divide. You can do it, but it's going to take longer and you may not get the right answer. And, so I think at some level you've got to express intent at a level the computer can understand. And it's hard enough writing software with code, right? Like if we can do everything in code but that's hard enough. And now you're trying to take that up a level of the stack. And when you have no agreement on standards, like even standards are moving all the time. So in order for that high order bit to be a reality, you've got to have so many things in play. You got to have standards in place. You've got to have levels of agreement. What is the definition of a user? What is the definition of using the mammal dog sort of analogy we use in computer science? There's no agreement upon those sorts of things, and now you're trying to throw them around like Lego. I don't get it, but there you go.
I think this comment works good here. No code is good for small items, which don't need anything really complex.
Sure.
Solved problems.
Save a file. That's a perfect example of no code. Save a file, write a file to disk. However, people are wanting to take this, purchase order and move it through. That's fine. I mean, but that stuff has to be written from scratch, basically at some level. It's very difficult for those things. I think a different take on this, just speaking as a developer, I think a different take on this is I think code generation and meta programming is on the verge of taking off. I think the tool sets for that sort of thing. I think writing boilerplate code is incredibly boring and time wasting.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, I think we've got to get, I think that's where we need to go in the software developer world, is more to getting the computer to write the code based on our intention, written in a higher order version using templates or whatever. But you really should not be writing public class foo, public bar, get set, blah, 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 blah. Like, we've got this in tools like VS and stuff, but we've got to go at a higher level, I think, and start use meta programming or templates or, you know, mocking and behavior driven development, etc. We've got to get to that level, I think. And I think a lot of people get turned off on this because they see it as a highly academic exercise. But I think that's where, in order to increase our productivity, that's where we need to go. This need for no code all arises from the fact that we're not productive enough, seen as productive enough as an industry by people who don't code, because they're like, this takes too long, it's too expensive. Why does it take this long? The file's right there. You should just be able to put it over. Why does it take so many months? Why is it so expensive, et cetera, et cetera? Why? And I think if we were, I think no code is sort of like the layman's answer to that. Like, oh, you know, if we can just slap these things together, it should just work. And sometimes, yes. But I think that in order for us to improve ourselves, us being the developer industry, I think we've got to move up a level of the stack and either choose different environments and languages or libraries, or try and utilize meta programming or, you know, things of that nature.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was this I was reading or something that was in tangent to it, but another comment that was made was no code software is also no test software. So there's no testing usually done in those no code tools. You're just like, you know, dragging and dropping things, and then you're like, okay, the problem's solved, but nobody's going out there and doing QA on it and saying, you know, are these false positives happening? You know, are these unexpected errors happening? What happens if somebody's license plate has the word null on it? Is that going to crash the system when it gets scanned in? That type of stuff doesn't happen. We're developers. We know what's happening inside the black box, so we throw unit testing and things at it, and try to test for edge cases and things where these canned solutions don't necessarily have that capability, or the people using them just don't have the expertise to think about it in that regard.
Or they're built in such a way that's so generic that they're not useful to anyone.
But wasn't the point to try to make a case against low code. It was just kind of an interesting read, because it's related to the current issues with healthcare and stuff. So
look, I know what people are
talking about.
I know what people are probably going to say is like, oh, John's saying what he's saying because he feels threatened by low code, no code. That is not the case at all. I would love if we moved into this space where we could just put pieces of code together like Lego. Nothing would make me happier than if we moved to that world. However, I've been in this industry long enough and I've seen enough of this stuff to know that this stuff does not always work. And there are reasons why. And yeah, I know. You
got to watch out for these guys named John. That's all I'm saying. That, you know, this was put together by two Johns.
And you got a John who's trashing this right now. So anyway,
reverse commentary.
Yeah, I don't feel. John. Yeah, let me reiterate. I do not feel threatened by this one iota. I want this to be the reality. I just know this. I know the realities of this, and it's going to suck, and it usually does. And I've seen it suck, and so people have got to put their. I'm not trying to be a skeptic, but I'm just saying, listen, I've seen this before, and it's kind of like trying to build an apartment building on top of a foundation that you know is structurally unsound. And I'm the engineer telling you, listen, there's a sinkhole underneath your kitchen and you want to put an extension on top of your kitchen. It's not going to work. We got to fix the sinkhole. You know, we got to work down below. And that's what I'm saying is like, we as developers need to do a better job. We need to make sure that we can drive our costs down by not outsourcing, but rather being more effective when we write software, and that requires us to utilize better tooling, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep, much agreed. Finally, this has not materialized yet.
Oh, it hasn't. Oh, okay, too bad.
So
I thought it came out.
I checked back in on it today. It has not been. They haven't taken the results from the survey and turned those into a report yet. I don't know if they're waiting for a recount, an audit. Who knows these days?
You and your recounts, you Americans.
Maybe they're waiting for the Four Seasons to open so they can do a proper press
right.
release of
That's
the
right.
state of CSS.
It's the greatest spec ever. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, CSS is a great example of where we need to go. Like if you look at level 1 versus level 2 versus level 3 of CSS, it's a perfect analogy of where we need to go. We need to go in the same way, level 1, level 2, level 3, in terms of our programming languages and our environments and the way we do things. I really hope to see that a lot of people are using CSS level 3 in this survey, box shadows, et cetera, et cetera. It would be cool to see a lot of, 3D transforms used in this. I doubt it. I think most people are just using CSS to like create styles, and they're not really doing a lot of transition stuff. The nice thing about using CSS, if people aren't aware, is that it targets the GPU. And that's the reason why you're seeing a lot of these frameworks utilize it, because it can go a lot faster as opposed to JavaScript, which is running, it's CPU bound basically. Except if you're targeting obviously Canvas or WebGL or something like that. So WebGL is a bit different. Yeah, it's a bit different with shaders and all that. But so CSS obviously is seen as a performance win there. It's just kind of interesting what people are doing with it. That's all.
Yeah. So they said they had over 2,000 surveyed.
Okay.
With this, so they're compiling all of those results. Oh, sorry, this is 10,000.
Okay.
The last thing I saw said 2. They got 10,000 developers that they surveyed. They're processing the data. You could sign up by email, or you can just watch us talk about it here on the show in a couple weeks, whenever that happens, whichever happens first.
Yep.
And with that said, that's all I've got for now, John.
Awesome.
We'll see you all next week. Same place, same time. We've got limited amount of shows this week on Code It Live because of the holiday season. I know I'm taking Wednesday and Friday, so I will not see anyone until next week. And then we have our shows will be back next week, and we also have that Blazor week that I talked about on Michael Jolly's channel. Make sure you tune into all the Twitch things, and we'll see you all soon.
Take care, guys.
Thanks for watching. Have a good one.